Welcome to Notes from a Ghost, a podcast about stories and the people who tell them. My name is Charlie, and I'm a ghostwriter. In this bonus episode, Jeffrey Mangus is back to talk about his new venture, Mangus Media Group, a ghostwriting agency offering first word to finished writing and editing and publishing services from a small group of the best writers in the business. I was lucky enough to be asked to join them and be a part of that group. We're going to do things a little differently in this episode, and we're going to focus kind of on the client-author experience. So if you've ever thought about writing a book, or you're looking for a ghostwriter, or you have a book and you are wondering what the next steps are to get it published, stick around. This episode is for you. Jeff, thanks so much for being back here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I was really excited to be on the show again. And you have a great show, man. I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Likewise. Well, I had a lot of fun last time, and I'm going to save like the guitar and the blues questions for the end, because I think we could totally just derail things and talk about that. So I was having a conversation actually with someone who I think is part of the group, recently, Zach Williamson.
Yes. Great guy.
Oh, he is the man. And actually that episode is going to be coming out pretty soon, and he there's a little bit of music talk in there too. But it was interesting because we were talking about kind of how weird is the word he used to describe ghostwriting and this job. I found that there's a couple of things, right? Like, this is definitely the first thing I've done where people have a million questions if I'm like at a dinner party or something. And it's not like, I think a lot of day jobs I've had, people will sort of be polite and ask a little bit about what you do. And
right.
With ghostwriting, they tend to linger and have follow-up questions. But at the same time, a lot of people, I think even people who might be trying to write a book, don't always know what ghostwriting is. Can you maybe give like a really simple definition for somebody who maybe is in the market for this but doesn't even know what they don't know?
Sure. In my mind, ghostwriting, a professional ghostwriter is a vessel for someone to tell their story, to bring their story to the page, bring their experience, know-how, knowledge, skill set to the page, because they don't necessarily have the time or the skill to do that. And we are a vessel. We're just that middle person bringing those ideas and concepts to the written page. And it's a really easy concept. It goes way beyond goes beyond what there used to be the myth about, ghostwriters a no. It's not. It's actually the smartest way to get your book written and not leave it in your mind and let it disappear and let it fade away.
When I have pitched myself, one thing I've brought up consistently, and I mean, you're a good example of this just on the sheer number of books you've written, but it isn't so much that like you need me to write your book. Maybe you could do it on your own, but I can get your book written by April 6th or whatever we agree is the due date. Because I've done that. I've written books to completion on time.
Absolutely.
Because I write books.
That's right. Exactly right. And ghostwriting for me is also, it goes beyond just the writer as well, too. There's a little term I've kind of created called ghost strategist. I help not only you write your book, but I'm helping you with your strategy for your marketing. I mean, it all rolls into one big package. Because I've learned that, we're not just writers. We end up becoming collaborators. We become almost partners, like per se, like with authors. There's a close-knit energy that's shared. I've written 40 books, and every single one, I can say my authors, we're friends. We become friends because there's a close-knit relationship built, right? And over time, there's personal things shared, and it becomes that type of relationship, and it's very positive. So
it's pretty touching. I can think of a couple of times. Actually, this has happened on almost every project for me where we're genuinely going to miss talking to each other, me and the
yeah, absolutely.
Especially where it's you spend, and Zach brought this up, you spend so much time together.
You do. I mean, and the thing is the time spent, and that a lot of authors think that I don't have time to sit and that's what we're here for too. Yeah, we get it. We understand your time constraint. You're a busy executive leader, whatever profession. That's what we're here to do, is alleviate you from sitting for hours and hours and hours. But the time spent is quality time spent with your writer. And because we're learning and we're studying you, and going back to the actual ghostwriting process, it's important for ghostwriters to get to know you, not just your face, but how you speak, how you talk, the language you like to use, words you like to use, looking at your emotions. I mean, I listen to authors, and this is part of probably the most major part of my process is listening. When I say listening, I'm listening with empathy. I'm listening with like, all right, how's this person feeling about this very, very moment, right? So I can come back and capture that onto the page. It's very important.
It's really funny because that like voice comes up all the time. I find when people are telling me what they want, oftentimes the first thing they talk about but the thing that I find is, and this is not an original observation, I've heard many other ghostwriters bring this up. I've seen it mentioned in books about ghostwriting. I think you have brought it up in yours. And that is, and you're kind of saying it now, there's so much that goes into voice. It isn't, I've had
Absolutely.
situations where people think what they mean by that is like, well, I use this particular turn of phrase, or I use the F word a lot. And that could be part of it.
Yes, it could be.
But there's kind of more to it than that. It's not
way
more.
For me, the skill that a ghostwriter brings, that should be probably the main nugget of it all, is because you should be able to recall your author in your head and recall what they say, be able to reflect those emotions, what they talked about, that what's going on in that written word, and that doesn't come easy. That takes a lot of practice, a lot of years of doing it. I mean, every ghostwriter should be able to do it, and to me, I'm always trying to improve on that. The voice capture, it's essential, right? And here lately, I feel like I'm really into a stride. Like I had a recent author, a CEO that I'm writing a book for. He actually sent me an email. It was really great. He said, "I got 2 words for you: excellently done." That was after 10 years of writing. That's the first time I'd ever got that. Like, wow, captured this guy's voice, and he didn't even change anything. So that's where, it didn't come easy, Charlie. It came many, many years, many hours in the chair, doing that.
And I promised we were going to talk about guitar at the end. What it reminds me of, though, is, and I never knew what this meant until I really tried to apply myself and study a little harder how to play guitar, but the tone is in your fingers.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. It's like, Eddie, I've heard people talk about they can play Eddie Van Halen's guitar, and it doesn't sound like Eddie Van Halen. It sounds like them, but Eddie's Eddie, right? It's all in your hands. It doesn't matter the instrument. Now it does help. The instrument does, but yeah, the same thing with writing. It's all in the skill and what you bring to the table as a writer, as a ghostwriter. And, anyone out there listening, if you're looking to hire a ghostwriter, this is something you want to ask about. You want to ask about ask about voice capture, but ask your writer, what techniques they use to capture that voice. It's important to understand.
Yeah, and no, it's true, and it's a process. I think, like you're describing. I don't think it's as simple as.
No, it is not. To me, yeah, it's definitely a process. And with my process, and this is my process. So other ghostwriters have their own processes, but this is what I do. I actually, when I take on a client, I dedicate 4 to 5 actual hours of what I call basically strategy sessions. And I meet with that author, and during those hours, it's not chit chat. There's the hellos and all that, but we get into the book, we get into the concepts of the book, we get into the subheads of the book, we start building an outline or working table of contents. I call it a pencil table of contents because it always changes, and I always inform the authors about that. And this is at the onset, but those 4 to 5 hours are used to really flesh out what the book's going to be, what the author's expectations are. Expectations is very important when it comes to voice capture. And if you don't mind me talking about that.
Please, this is gold.
The expectation, to me, is the critical aspect, because there's nothing worse than the author not understanding what they're going to be seeing when they receive a first draft. And it's very difficult for some authors who are expecting a certain thing and they don't see it. Some authors have it in their mind how the book should be, and they just can't get it out. So with the expectations, at the onset, I explain these are first drafts. I call them Franken drafts. I didn't coin that term. My mentor, Derek Lewis, I'll give him credit. Derek, if you're listening, how are you, man? But he came up with a term called Franken draft. And Franken draft, he's right. It's like you're piecing together pieces like Frankenstein. But at the end of the day, before you hit publish, before it's all said and done, you energize it by cleaning it up, shaping it down. So that I always explain those expectations that with an author, that what they're going to see is a first draft. It's meant to be changed. We're not here to fix typos and grammar. All that stuff happens later on. We're here to look at the broad view, basically of the narrative in that chapter. Is it saying what you want to say? If it doesn't, I encourage the author to add their input, and then I'll fix it and clean it up. But it goes back to expectations and letting them know what they're going to see beforehand, which actually helps the process as you start building the book. That trust factor comes into play. The author starts to really, really trust you as a ghostwriter, and then vice versa. The ghostwriter is trusting the author to give them real feedback, not, I don't sugarcoat anything. So, and I expect my authors to not sure if they're not happy with it, tell me, let's fix it. It has nothing to do with ego, has everything to do with the book, has everything to do with making that book the best it can absolutely be.
I have learned the hard way how important that is to lay out the expectations of not just like how the editing goes, but like you're saying, what to expect a first draft to look. Because most people have just like most people haven't like listened to a demo or whatever. Like most people have never seen unedited writing.
Right.
I once got chewed out over a very small typo in a draft, not of a book, thank God, but someone was like, I thought you were a professional writer. What is this? And I had to explain to them that like I wasn't even paying attention to spelling because I was focused on content at that stage of the.
Right, exactly. And that goes back again, the expectations. That's what I explained. This is not the time to edit. We're not editing now. We are looking for the correct vision, the correct direction for the chapter, because the rest of the book's going to fall into place. And I always say it takes one or two chapters to really find that rhythm, to find the rhythm. And that's why, again, I always tell authors at the onset, be patient. Trust me, we will get this. It might take one or two stabs, a couple of revisions on the first 2 or 3 chapters. But once that happens, then you'll see the flow. It gets easier per book. Absolutely.
I, on a recent project, sort of changed my process for most. I used to be I will give you a draft when it's done kind of guy. And I knew other people who did it that way. And I had plenty of sort of reason to think that was the right way to do it. And I had come from a few kind of nightmare experiences in copywriting where having people look over my shoulder made for a tough process.
Yeah.
But lately I've started delivering chapter by chapter, and so far that's been really good. I've had great experiences doing that, and I've been lucky enough to work with authors who want that level of involvement to be ongoing. How do you approach that? I
approach it the exact same way, chapter by chapter. I don't believe in, because I did that once as well. I wrote a whole book for a gentleman. He gave me a title of the book and said, write it. And I couldn't get him back on camera to review it or anything. I wrote the whole book on a gut. Here we go. And whoa. Thank God he loved it. He's very happy, so, but I was sweating bullets. I mean, I admit it. So I work chapter by chapter, but now recently, honestly, I have found that I like to work 2 chapters by 2 chapters. Okay. In other words, I'll use that recording session to record after those strategy sessions I'm talking about. We do always end up with a good solid outline, right? Enough that we can start working. And I usually say, let's meet and let's talk about chapters 1 and 2. So the author will be able to give me that information for 2 chapters, and I'm able to take that information and write those 2 chapters. And I find that the 2 chapter thing works really well for me and for the author, because they're able to see not just one chapter, they're able to visualize the 2 chapters at a time, which actually helps support the concept of what they're trying to do. It's what I'm finding. And I find it also, it speeds things up a little bit. Again, most books take 4 to 6 months. I get that. And a good one, and yeah, you can do them faster. I mean, it all depends on, again, the collaboration and how things work. But the 2 chapter thing, it seems to really increase the speed of the thing, but also getting great quality, because the authors will be able to visualize those chapters, and then they can visualize the next 2. Say, okay, well, these 2 are hit it. So then the next 2. So I find it working easier that way. 2 chapter by 2 chapter.
And I was going to say, it definitely seems like the way to go. From, I guess the downside of 1 chapter at a time is you could face delays or on the spot, like spot editing, where having 2 chapters, it seems like would give you a little bit more momentum.
Yeah, and what I do too is, I take those two chapters and I start formulating the sample manuscript as I go along. So at the end of the road, it's not on an organizational aspect. At the end of the day, the author doesn't know that I'm compiling it all. So I'm ready. I'll have it pretty much ready to go for the final revisions and the final look throughs and that kind of thing. Plus, when I give it when we reach the end of the stage of the book, it helps the author to kind of visualize. And I tell them again, expectations. This is not the final draft, but this is a compilation of all of our chapters. This is a chance for you to review it as one consecutive thing instead of piecemeal. And it really helps that process along, and also the author to see the concept of everything.
I find sometimes too, it's just like noticing where does your attention flag when you actually are reading an entire book.
Right.
That can be very telling. So we've talked about different parts, drafts and outlines and things. Can you just like, without, giving away any secret sauce or whatever, could you walk me through the process of just generically like how a book gets ghostwritten as if I were an author client?
Sure. Let's say you're an author client, you came to me. We would schedule our first meetings, and we would talk about if we're going to work together. That's really important, because the author needs to know they can work with me personality wise, and I need to know if I can work with that author personality wise, because we're going to be together for a while. It's really important. Let's just say that happens. We get an agreement. Everyone's fine. The price is set. Everything's done. And we schedule those first five sessions, and those sessions are not done consecutively. They could be, but I usually take 2 or 3 weeks to schedule those and get those in and get that narrative going. And then I will go and write the first draft, whether it's the introduction of the first chapter or 2 chapters, whatever that is. And I ask the author to give me any materials they have, whether it's recordings they have out there or podcasts. Give me materials on what you've already written. I don't care what it looks like. If you have articles and blogs out there that you've written, give me samples of that so I can study those as well. Again, going back to the voice capture aspect, I will write those chapters. And then again, usually depending on the length of those chapters, it usually takes about a week, to get those over to the author. And once I do that, again, I'll deliver those chapters with the expectations that this is their chance to look at the first draft, Franken draft. Let's piece it together. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's right. Add your input into this. I'll put track changes on those chapters, and then I ask them to send them back when they review. Once they send back, I usually do two to three revisions per chapter. I allocate that, and it usually takes just 2. Usually it narrows it down. And again, it goes back to experience. And then that process is continued. I do ask the authors to meet me maybe once a week, to talk about the next 2 chapters, and that just after those strategy sessions. Again, trying not to take up the author's time. Most of the authors I work with, busy executives, leaders, 1 hour a week's good with them, and that's all I need. Again, take that hour meeting, talk about those next 2 chapters, and then the same process repeats, and it just repeats till we get to the end of the book. Again, if there's any errors or, if there's any delays, the author, if there's like vacations, I always keep my authors informed on my schedule, where I'm at, what I'm doing. Authors don't have to tell me, but I do ask that if they're going on vacation, just let me know, so we can have all this, we know what's going on. But I make the process as seamless as possible. And kind of going back to the Mangus Media Group, that's the heart of what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to we got an agency that's trying not to scale. And let me explain that. I want to build from the inside. I want to take writers from this level and I want to bring them up to here. I want to shine the light on all of our team, right? We have a great team of people. And what I've found with our team now is that everyone is on the wagon. They're on the same page. Everyone wants to write exemplary books. We want to build a list of books that are absolutely fantastic and be proud of that, and build a reputation of being an agency that delivers this type of high white glove, high touch type of books, best-selling books with the best writers I can find in the world. And yes, thank you for being a part of it, Charlie. I mean, I'm really excited to have you on. And but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to our mantra is we're bringing world-class writers to world-class leaders. We're meshing those two together and trying to write excellent books for people out there. So, and have a seamless, endless. The author now will feel the bumps in the road. I mean, the team, we get that, right? That's what we're here for. We're going to feel the bumps. We want the authors to have a seamless, journey. Book. We want them to enjoy it. And every author I've ever worked for, I've never had anyone say, "Man, this is a terrible process." Never. And that would break my heart, honestly, to hear that. I want everyone to enjoy themselves, because writing books you should enjoy it. It should be a journey that you say, "Man, that was really great. That was a great time," And because when you hold the book, you don't want to have bad memories. You want to think, "Man, this is great," And it's very important for me and for you and for the Mangus Media Group for that.
Have you, well, first of all, I mean, I am like, when you reached out asking me to be a part of that, I remember like rereading the email. I'm like, no, this is like me. Like, oh, that I was so touched and moved. I wanted to make sure you were really asking me to do this. I mean, it's been so good so far. And I'm even just because I've heard, whether it's in startup land or publishing land, people throwing scale around like it's this thing you're just supposed to want, instead of like where all I've heard you talk about is quality and great writing and great people. And it's just such a breath of fresh air, because that's...
Thank you.
Those things shouldn't be controversial.
Right. And I appreciate it, because I do. I mean, I'm all for anyone starting a business. And if that's your dream to scale and build and go for it. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been working for myself now for almost 30 years. I mean, I've worked for myself. But with this agency, the vision is clear to me. It's like crystal clear. I see this agency as reputable. Number one, and I even posted about it today. Nothing goes out our doors unless it's the best it can be, right? To the very best that everyone on our team can do, right? The best work. And that's where authors will shine. Books will become bestsellers. The agency will build a reputation. Again, building out, not scaling up and having 1,000 ghostwriters and lost in that kind of weeds. I don't want to ever go there. I hand chose writers like you. I hand chose them, not only because of skill level. I chose because of personality. I mean, you're a great guy. I can work with you. I can work with everyone on the team, and it's very important, right? And that's why, I'm sure there's probably ghostwriters out there like, hey, how come you didn't ask me? It has nothing to do with that. It's just, these are people that I've come in contact with that I know, and that's why they're here. And I'm really proud of what we're going. I mean, things are ramping up. Things are, and it takes a good hard push to set a ship to sail, and that's what I'm really doing. So all my writers, everyone's been patient, and things are, but we are, really on the upscale on what's happening. There's a lot of things going on in the back end. So we're really proud of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, and the admiration and respect for what you're doing is mutual. And, one thing, I shout out to Lucinda Halpern, the agent who's been on this podcast and wrote Get Signed. She talks about, she's brilliant. She's the best. She talks about I think she describes it as like the broken radio test. Like if you were driving from I think she says Chicago to New York and the radio quit like 10 minutes into the drive, could you tolerate a road trip filled with conversation with that person?
I never ever thought about that. That's great. That's brilliant, actually.
But when you asked me to be a part of this, I mean, you come to mind, and you and I could barely get going on this podcast because we had so much we wanted to talk about off the record. And and it's like, that would actually, I wouldn't even have to think about it. Road trip with Jeff and no entertainment would be fine. Actually, there would be music because you'd have probably a guitar in the back seat and
or something. We're singing along and something, acapella, that kind of thing. Exactly.
But no, I mean, and life's too short, to not work with great people and nice people. And it's funny. Tell me if you've experienced this, because you mentioned, busy CEOs and
yes.
And that's a thing. And you've brought this up, and so did Zach, about how sometimes the reason the person can't write the book themselves is they don't have the time. And
that's right.
But one thing, and I've taken it as such a compliment and such a reason to not have imposter syndrome, where I've been working with someone like that who's really busy, and they will silence their phone when they get a call because
Yeah.
they want to keep talking, or they'll be like thanks for getting me out of this like shareholder meeting or whatever. Like I'd so
Right.
much rather be talking
Pulling
to
me
you.
out. Yeah.
Um, I've never had anyone lord that dynamic over me of like, oh, I've got places to be, you know. This.
No, I've never had that either, because everyone that I've ever worked with are always usually, and I've been blessed, have been engaged in their project, deeply engaged, which is again, a breath of fresh air. I mean, but again, I love that when they deeply engage, but I don't ask them to take up a lot of their time, disrupt their life. My goal is to not disrupt their life. They got family lives, they got their business. That all they don't need headaches from me. They just need to know that their book's getting written. And with the Mangus Media Group, we have teams in place. We have publishers in place. We have book designers. We have editors. I mean, it's all in place, and everyone's working together collectively, and which is again what I'm talking about. I'm very proud of collectively to have that one issue, the one thing, having and producing a great book, an excellent book, and that it's so important. It really is.
That was actually the next thing I wanted to ask you about. Can you tell me a little bit about because that's another thing, if I can just shamelessly plug
Sure.
Mangus Media Group. I mean,
Thank you.
That to me solves so many problems that you offer a integrated like hybrid publishing option, or I don't know if that's quite how you describe it, but
that's how we describe it. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And because I've been in that situation where I'll try to give some advice on what I know about publishing, but it isn't like there's not much I can actually do for the client, and our contract doesn't include really anything. I tend to throw in some free support and advice there, but it doesn't always lead to a simple one and done answer. But you've gone and provided that through some of what you do. So could you talk me through the publishing side of?
Sure, absolutely. And that this is the biggest thing that I've seen. I mean, as a business entrepreneur, as a ghostwriter professional over 10 years, just like you just said, I've tried to provide publishing to authors, and I've published many books from authors myself, but I realize that it's fragmented, it's broken, because I'd have to find a cover designer over here, I'd have to hire an editor over here, and I had them working in my camp, but it was like this broken thing, it was fragmented, right? So I paid attention to it. And then when I met Tim Jacobs with JWC Publishing, and he and I partnered together to do, and we co-founded the Academy of Ghostwriting. That's a whole other podcast, but it's a great organization that we have, helping writers become successful ghostwriters, and it's doing really well. We're really proud of that. But he and I, got together, and when I learned about what he did, Tim has a team. Tim has a team of editors and even ghostwriters as well. And he works with Susie Schaefer, who is now with the agency. She has a company called Finish the Book, and she is fantastic. She does everything from the book cover designs to book coaching to ISBN layout. She has her team, and then we've also have got her name is Denise Wilson. She's part of the AOG, and I call her Dee. She's great, and she's now our chief editor and book doctor. And we're really excited as that core team on the publishing side, because what we're trying to do is, this is all for the author, but we're also trying to support our ghostwriters. So in other words, when a project's brought to our writers, the writer gets to write and do what they do best, and then that book is handed off to our team under the agency umbrella. So you don't have to worry about your author getting taken care of. And our authors also meet everyone on the team. They're going to meet their writer, they're going to meet their publisher, they're going to meet their book designer. Everyone's on the same page. So again, going back to the seamless process, the author knows who they're working with. They see their faces, they know their names, and that way the author knows. Now we're getting to the editing stage. I'm going to be working with Tim. It's very, very laid out in process, and me and that team are working stringently on that process, making sure it's smooth and seamless. I mean, yeah, we're going to feel the bumps in the road. The author will never feel it. That's our goal. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But Tim, going back to your question, Tim and I worked on many books together and have published and for authors, and he does a fantastic job, absolutely stellar. And this is not a shameless plug for him. I mean, I'm just saying the gentleman Tim Jacobs has a wonderful, wonderful process. His team, strong, very strong, great book cover designs, just really strong. And again, that's all about having that exemplary thing we're doing. But we're also the added magic that we're doing with I'm getting ready to roll it out. And I'm going to go ahead and mention it here. And Tim and I have conversed, and Susie, we've all conversed, and we're going to offer book coaching along with the writing. We do offer book coaching separate, but we're going to assign a book coach to each author's project for the author. So the writer gets to write, the ghostwriter gets to write, but the author's going to have a coach who's they can bounce ideas off of and keep the project on track. It's like an accountability thing. But we're really going to focus the coach on the marketing side, the pre and post. Very, very, it's no agency's doing it. We're doing it, and we're going to be doing it. And so Tim and I have been brainstorming on the publishing side and actually, because and you've been in projects where projects go south, authors disappear, things go wrong. The book coach will also be that mediator between, like, okay, what do we got to do to save this project? What's going wrong? And then it's all relayed to the writer. Everything is all open and transparent. It's really a great thing.
That sounds absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Really excited.
It makes me think of something I've heard from authors before, and I never would have thought of this as like a value prop in what we do, but it's that idea that, like, and I've had a couple of people say this to me, that it was nice to not have to do this alone.
Exactly.
I was very moved by that.
Right.
Because it's easy to think that you're just doing a job and you're just helping them do something that you're probably a ghostwriter because writing comes relatively naturally to you, and you're maybe not thinking and I've gotten in the habit of saying to people, just take some time to appreciate what crossing the finish line feels like.
Exactly right. That's one thing about me. I love the spirit of writing. I love the craft of it. I seriously love it. I can't even describe to you. I love music. I love guitars, and I love writing just as much. And I never thought I'd ever say that, but I do. And I can't wait to go to work every day. Susie Schaefer and I met this week, and she said that she loves to get up and go to work because we love what we do. I don't even see it as work. My wife, I'll be working at 9:30 at night. She'll go, "Are you ever going to quit?" I'm like, I didn't even realize it was 9:30. So just honestly, but I believe in that, and I believe in taking the time to enjoy that and get past all the marketing and the return on investment. All that stuff's part of it. It's all integral. But at the end of the day, it's about relationships, human beings getting to know one another, and human beings trying to do something great. That's what it's all about.
Well, it is an absolute honor and a lot of fun to be one of those human beings. So thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
With the last couple of minutes, and I want to be mindful of your time and not go down like the ultimate rabbit hole for both of us, but you'd mentioned guitar and music. It's something you and I share. You as a real, like, lifelong, at one point professional musician, me as a noodler, beginner, hobbyist. But maybe if we'll keep it on the writing for a second, but I just want to give a shout out to your new book since the last time we talked, Blues Lessons.
Thank you.
And I urge people to go check that out. I can't wait to read it. I haven't yet, but I know you were saying it incorporates lessons from blues, but in your life of having the blues and playing the blues.
Yes, it is a deep dive, that's for sure.
But I guess my question is, what have you learned about writing from guitar? Or, like, what did guitar kind of prepare you for when you found yourself writing for a living?
Best questions I've ever been asked. And I can honestly say that my guitar playing, when you're learning to play guitar, I started playing when I was 6, but when I really got serious about 8 years old, okay? And I poured everything into it. I'm talking about blue fingers, just raw, just playing, just play. And it's the same thing with writing. When I first started writing after I lost my leg, I dug in, man. And I dug in and I just wrote. I feel like every word, just whether it was good or bad, was still that writing, right? And I have that same passion today. Okay. And I'm getting intense now because you've asked in a question that I've never been asked, that I've always wanted to be asked.
Let's do it.
Because when it comes to writing and music, how I correlate the two is, I've got years of music in my head, to this day, if you said, hey, Jeff, can you play this song? I can play that song. I can sing that song. I know those notes. I know those melodies. All that's ingrained. It's the same with writing and going back to voice capture. I'm able to visualize that author in my mind, and I shut off all noise. There's no phones. There's no notifications. There's nothing. It's silence. And I've got that author's visual in my head, how they're speaking, what they're talking about. And then I've used that memory recall of all that power, of that creative power, right? And I'm able to capture voice. It's almost like seeing a movie and being able to just writing a screenplay, sort of, kind of, I see it visually. I see the author talking, and I'm able to put it onto the page. And that's how I correlate the writing and the music. It starts with passion, starts with drive, and it starts with holding on to that, right? Going back to the spirit of the craft of it. I mean, yeah, all this can take over. The marketing and all this stuff can get in your way, but I don't ever let it. I love leading the Mangus Media Group. I love what I do, but at the end of the day, it's all about the keyboard or the pen and the pencil, or whatever you're writing, whatever you're doing, or the iPad, it doesn't matter. It's all about taking what's in here and putting it onto that page. And it's all done through that creative muscle that I have, memory retention, the love of it, and again, it's a love of it, right? When you pull that passion out of it, it all happens that way. Hopefully that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And actually, you would love this. And for anyone who's seeing the video version of this can appreciate it. So my latest guitar I got from, there's a place they ship everywhere in Europe. I think they ship all over the world, but you don't have to pay duty within Europe. But it's the Fellowship of Acoustics. And I got a new guitar from them, but they specialize in like old Martins and pre-war guitars
yeah.
where you'd have to mortgage your house. And, but they're fun to look at. And they have, apparently it's in the Netherlands, and they have like an old mansion that's their
cool
storefront. And it was great. And they did like a proper setup of my guitar before they shipped it and all the rest. But I was opening up the box, and it came with like stickers and a really nice note from the tech who set it up and everything. So it's so nice, right? But then it has this little box, and it's full of Band-Aids, and it says, play till your fingers bleed.
I love that.
It's so cool. And I was like, I just so motivated. I observed something, and I don't know the music theory way to put this, and I want to just bring this to you and see what you think about this. But and I was talking about it with Dominique. She writes fiction, my wife, and we were talking about how this relates to storytelling. But I've noticed as I'm learning to play acoustic blues, which is, for people who don't know, it's super difficult to play because you're playing basically the bass and the melody at the same time.
Right.
And it's it's almost like electric guitar appreciation time, because you realize why they invented different styles of music that didn't.
My daughters invent electric guitar, right?
Pretty much. And it's one of those things where it's like, because it was one usually unaccompanied vocalist supporting themselves. But the thing that as I'm learning songs like Coffee Blues and like where it's like 4 measures and it's not even very many notes. And I guess you get this in blues soloing on electric too, but you don't really, it is so stripped down sometimes that like, unless you're just on it with not just hitting the right notes, but hitting the right spaces between the notes and the right rhythm, you kind of don't have anything.
That is absolutely true.
Is that I'm sure someone who knows music theory could explain why that's the case, but it's like you have either got like this groove where you have a feeling that's coming through a very simple pattern, or it just sounds like a few random notes in repetition.
Well, that's, if you get on YouTube, and I can get on YouTube today and I can find 1,000 guitar players all over the place, right? But you get one guy like Joe Bonamassa, it comes to mind. Joe Bonamassa, I've met Joe, I've seen him play, and he can play all those notes, but if you listen to the phrasing, there's space between them. But Joe can hit one note. He can hit one note and hold it. It says more than 1,000 notes, right? It's all, again, going into, but you're right, theory-wise, blues music or any music. I mean, you listen to Carlos Santana. I mean, the guy can just, He's notorious for playing all these blistering notes, but then he can squeeze one note and it just takes your soul. You can feel that, right? And then he goes back into the melody, like he brings it home, right? Brings it home. A blues soloing is the same way. It's not about how many notes you're playing. It's about the phrase. And also, I've learned playing blues over the years. Because I am a blues guy. I love it the most. It's what I do. Again, it's not about playing fast or how many notes. It's about where to put it. Perfect example, B.B. King. B.B. King is a master. Put it. Where to put it. And it has nothing to do with how many notes. He could put a note right there, and it's just perfect, right? And that's what it's all about. It's that, and again, going back to writing, the music, it takes a lot of time and skill and learning to do that. It just takes practice.
That was the album Live at the Regal, I think, is that of his. There's a friend of mine who's a session musician who is such a good dude that he took the time to like just sort of talk to me about guitar. And it's one of those things. And he had a guitar in his hands on this call, and so he was like playing me things. But he told me to listen to that album, and he's like, "This is why, even if you don't want to sing, embarrassed to sing, don't think of yourself as a singer. This album is, if you're learning the blues, this is why you should sing, to understand how and why he's bending notes the way he is." And
that's exactly right.
He played little part. I mean, like I think it was "How Blue Can You Get?"
Oh yeah, how blue can you get? Absolutely.
And the way he yeah, and plus it's just, I mean, God, did you ever see him live?
I've seen B.B. King many times live. Yes, absolutely. He's just a treasure, and he's sadly missed. And when I was playing out a lot, I used to have the band, and I'd bring the band way up. I had a 3-piece band. It was just 3 of us, man, like Double Trouble, SRV, right? Stevie Ray Vaughan's another example of where to put it. He knows exactly where to put it and how. And he can blister, but then he knows, if you listen to Riviera, Paradise, all those songs, he knows how to be soulful. But I learned that as well. And I would bring that band way up, and then they knew I'd give them signals, and they knew if I dropped that headstock of that guitar down, we'd come down to a whisper, and I'd hold one note, right? And I remember one night, I swear this is a true story, and I'll shut up. I was playing, and it was a magical moment where it was a perfect mixture of perfect position on the stage, the amp, the guitar, and I pinched a note, and it was feedbacking. I wrote about it in my blues lessons. It was almost an epiphanal moment of my music career. I hit this perfect note, and it rang, but it wasn't wasn't hurt me. The crowd was just, everyone, it was like the band was like dropped to and this note was just holding it, Charlie. And I was like, it was like my heart, everything was just like, and it happened after I had 3 heart attacks and lived through that and had heart surgery. That was like in 2010. And it was the first show back. And that's when it happened. And it was like God telling me, like, I was holding that note, and I could have held it probably all night long. It just was perfect. Then I had to finally let it go, and I was like, let it go, I was like, oh my God, I got to let this thing go. Let the band start playing again, But no, it was just one of those moments. It was just a beautiful moment.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Let's leave it on that note. Jeff, I'm going to include links and stuff, but where can people find you, find us, and start this whole process?
Thank you. Yeah, it's we are real easy to find. We are mangusmediagroup.com, and that's where you'll find me. I'm pointing everything to the agency. There can't be any separation. I love that. And then our email is mangusmediagroup.info@gmail.com. If you have a book idea out there, even if you're just, you're not ready and you just want to talk about that, we'd love to talk to you about it, because we can definitely, help you steer you in the right direction, and then hopefully work with you down the line. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again. And I mean, this is just like, I'm going to go play and write.
There you go, man. That's great. It's been great today. Thank you, Charlie, for having me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. If you have an epic story, I'd love to hear it. You can find me at dailypros.com or on LinkedIn or on the Mangus Media Group website under, I believe, Our Team. My links, Jeff's and that of the Mangus Media Group, are in the show notes. Thanks for listening.